You're watching FISM News.
The crash in U.S. crude prices has turned the commodity less than worthless. Markets are already unnerved at the thought of traders paying to give away May futures contracts for West Texas Intermediate crude. But some market participants believe the transformation of this black gold into a liability could mean a new round of deflation and financial destruction as the COVID-19 pandemic wrecks the world economy. This is part of the deflation process, said Murray Gunn, head of global research at market forecasting firm Elliott Wave International. At this juncture, our analysis suggests that this is very probably the second wave of a much bigger fall. Over the next 2 or 3 years, we will be in a deflationary environment. Survival will be paramount, and cash is king. The crash has already downed a rebound rally that has taken the MSCI World Index up more than 20% from March lows, sending Asian shares on their steepest tumble in a month and U.S. stocks sliding 2 days in a row. Some investors are preparing for fundamental problems ranging ahead, including all speculators going bust to the destruction of the U.S. shale industry and a credit crunch if energy firms' bad debts grow and banks tighten their belts. According to Patrick Parrott-Green, head of research at AdMacro, a boutique research and investment advisory in London, trading losses can quickly spread risks outward to banks, who are likely to respond by lending less.
U.S. President Donald Trump said Monday night that he will sign an executive order temporarily suspending immigration to the United States. The decision is made in light of the COVID-19 pandemic and the need to protect jobs of Americans, Trump tweeted. It was not immediately clear when the suspension would go into effect or how long it would last. During his presidency, Donald Trump has maintained a hardline stance on immigration and border security and pushed for a series of conservative measures.
North Korea's leader Kim Jong-un is receiving treatment after undergoing a cardiovascular procedure earlier this month. A South Korean media report said amid speculation over Kim's health following his absence from a key anniversary event. North Korea marked the anniversary of the birthday of its founding father and Kim's grandfather, Kim Il-sung, as a national holiday on April 15th, but Kim was not seen in attendance. Daily NK, a specialty website run mostly by North Korean defectors, cited unidentified sources inside the isolated state saying Kim is recovering at a villa in Mount Kumgong Resort County of Hyeongsan on the East Coast after the procedure on April 12th at a hospital there. Reporting from inside North Korea is notoriously difficult given tight controls on information spread. This is especially challenging on matters concerning the country's leadership. Kim's health has deteriorated in recent months due to heavy smoking, obesity, and overwork, the Daily NK report said. Kim left for the hospital after presiding over a meeting of the ruling Workers' Party Politburo on April 11th, where Kim was publicly last seen, the report said. Pyongyang fired multiple short-range missiles last week, which Seoul officials said were also part of Kim Il-sung's birthday celebration. Such military events would usually be observed by Kim, but there was no KCNA report on the test.
The U.S. Senate on Tuesday unanimously approved $484 billion in fresh relief for the U.S. small business economy and hospitals hammered by the coronavirus pandemic, sending the measure to the House of Representatives for final passage later this week. The bill was approved through a voice vote by the handful of senators present in the sparsely attended chamber. President Donald Trump urged Congress to quickly approve the measure, which mainly expands funding for loans to small businesses, leaving additional aid to state and local governments for a later bill. At the end of March, Washington provided nearly $350 billion in loans to small businesses impacted by the economic fallout from the coronavirus that can turn into grants if certain requirements are met. That funding, however, was quickly exhausted. Critics of the program said too much of the money had gone to larger, better-connected businesses. Burger chain Shake Shack said on Monday it would return a $10 million loan it received after coming under public criticism. To reduce the risk of large companies getting the bulk of the loans again, Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer said $125 billion of small business funds in the latest package would go to mom and pop and minority-owned stores. The deal includes $321 billion for a small business lending program, $60 billion for a separate emergency disaster loan program, also for small businesses, as well as $75 billion for hospitals and $25 billion for national coronavirus testing. Congress already is working on a fifth coronavirus response bill. ExxonMobil Corp kicked off construction on Wednesday of its $10 billion petrochemical complex in South Chinese city Huizhou, state news agency Xinhua reported. The complex, which consists of a 1.6 million tons per year ethylene facility, is one of the few mega petrochemical projects in China wholly owned by a foreign investor.
Georgia's governor announced plans on Monday to restart the state's economy before the end of the week, saying many closed businesses could reopen as early as Friday. Georgia's timetable is one of the shortest in the nation. Republican Governor Brian Kemp said it was important to give shutdown businesses a chance to get some revenue flowing. But he emphasized they would still be operating under restrictions, including monitoring employee health, enhancing sanitation, and separating workers. Bars, sit-down restaurants, live performance venues, and amusement parks will remain closed. The governor's actions loosely follow the Phase 1 reopening guidelines issued last week by President Donald Trump's administration. The guidelines call for 14 days of declining COVID-19 cases. On Monday, Georgia had recorded 6 days of declining new infections, according to State Department of Public Health figures. Kemp said a decline in emergency room visits by people with flu-like symptoms indicates that infections are coming down. State Public Health Commissioner Kathleen Toomey told reporters, "The bottom line is social distancing worked." In phone calls with U.S. President Donald Trump and some European leaders, Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison has sought support for an international investigation into the coronavirus pandemic. This was reported by the Australian government on Wednesday. Australia is pushing for an independent review of the origins and spread of the pandemic, as well as the WHO's response. Morrison said on Twitter on Wednesday he had a very constructive discussion with Trump on the two nations' responses to COVID-19 and the need to get their economies up and running. He then tweeted, "We also talked about the WHO and working together to improve the transparency and effectiveness of the international response to pandemics." Morrison's office said he also spoke on the phone to German Chancellor Angela Merkel and French President Emmanuel Macron about the role of the WHO. WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus has repeatedly said that the UN agency will evaluate its handling of the pandemic after it ends, as is the standard procedure after all emergencies. According to an unnamed government source, Australia aims to examine whether the WHO should be given powers, similar to international weapons inspectors, to enter a country to investigate an outbreak without having to wait for consent.
On Wednesday, President Donald Trump called on the director of the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention to clarify his remark that the second wave of novel coronavirus in the fall could be worse than the current situation. CDC Director Robert Redfield made the widely circulated comment in an interview Tuesday with the Washington Post. Trump tweeted that the health expert was misquoted and that he would be putting out a statement. Redfield, however, said he was quoted accurately. "I think it's really important to emphasize what I didn't say. I didn't say that this was going to be worse," said Redfield at the daily White House coronavirus briefing. "I said it was going to be more difficult and potentially complicated because we're going to have flu and coronavirus circulating at the same time." Trump also announced that his administration will hold a July 4th celebration on the National Mall in Washington, as it did last year. At present, the Capitol remains under a stay-at-home order through May 15th. U.S. President Donald Trump said he disagreed with Georgia Governor Brian Kemp's aggressive push to reopen his state's economy. "They can wait a little bit longer, just a little bit, not too much," said Trump, "because safety has to predominate. We have to have that." However, Trump was generally optimistic about the fact that several states were loosening restrictions and reopening their economies. One of Trump's top advisors on the pandemic, Dr. Anthony Fauci, said mitigation strategies were working, setting the stage for states to reopen. He urged Kemp to proceed with caution. "If I were advising the governor, I would tell him be careful. I would tell him not to just turn the switch on and go," Fauci said, adding that Georgia could see a rebound of the virus, further damaging the state's economy. In response, Kemp on Twitter praised Trump's leadership but said the state would move forward as planned.
A 1-month-old Thai baby, the country's youngest coronavirus patient, has successfully recovered after being administered a cocktail of antiviral drugs. On one hand, there are challenges to treating infants under 1 year old due to restrictions on certain medications allowed to be administered to such a young baby. However, Vishal Mulasart, the pediatrician who treated the patient, said that symptoms of COVID-19 on young children tend to be less severe than in adults. Through careful consultation with pharmaceutical physicians and other medical experts, they decided to use 4 antiviral drugs to cure the baby. Fortunately, we were able to receive him early. We found that he has pneumonia and were able to treat him immediately. In most cases, the faster the treatment within 24 to 48 hours, the better the result. Therefore, after the 3rd or 4th day of giving him antiviral drugs, his recovery was distinctive. Despite the slowing of new cases, officials remain cautious and said the best practice against the new virus is for the public to stay home and maintain social distancing.
Apple said on Thursday it has found no evidence a flaw in its email app for iPhones and iPads has been used against customers, and believe that the flaw does not pose an immediate risk to their users. This comes as a response to a claim made by the San Francisco-based cybersecurity firm ZecOps that an Apple flaw may have left more than 500 million iPhones vulnerable to hackers. Zook Avram, ZecOps chief executive, told a Reuters reporter that he found evidence an attacker had been taking advantage of the vulnerability as far back as January 2018, but he could not determine who the hackers were. On Wednesday, Apple acknowledged the vulnerability existed in its Mail app and said the company had developed a fix that will be introduced in a forthcoming update. ZecOps said it found evidence of related hacks against a few organizations and that it would share additional technical information once Apple released its software update.
The United States is attempting to curb its reliance on China for items such as specialized minerals used to make weapons and high-tech equipment, but is currently facing a catch-22. The U.S. has only one rare earths mine, and government scientists have been told not to work with it because of its Chinese ties. The mine is Southern California's Mountain Pass, home to the world's 8th largest reserves of the rare earths used in missiles, fighter jets, night vision goggles, and other devices. But the U.S. Department of Energy, or the DOE, has told government scientists not to collaborate with the mine's owner, MP Materials. This is because a Chinese investor owns almost a tenth of the company and relies heavily on Chinese sales and technical knowledge, according to MP Materials. In 2010, China halted supplies to Japan during a diplomatic dispute, unnerving U.S. military officials who wondered if China could one day do the same thing to the United States. That refocused Washington's attention on the mine. President Donald Trump further sharpened the directive last July, telling the Pentagon to fund U.S. rare earths projects and find better ways to procure military-grade magnets made from rare earths. The COVID-19 pandemic has brought to the forefront the global nature of supply chains and how heavily Western countries rely on China for a host of key products, including drug ingredients.
The COVID-19 pandemic is an unprecedented global crisis that has been met with an unprecedented global response. Research and development have played a central role. Since January, WHO has been working with thousands of researchers all over the world to accelerate and track vaccine development, from developing animal models to clinical trial designs and everything in between. We have also developed diagnostics that are being used all over the world. And we're coordinating a global trial on the safety and efficacy of 4 therapeutics against COVID-19. The world needs these tools, and it needs them fast.
World leaders pledged on Friday to accelerate work on tests, drugs, and vaccines to fight COVID-19 and share them around the globe. However, the United States did not take part in the launch of the WHO initiative. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said that the objective at a global pledging effort in early May would be to raise 7.5 billion euros, or $8.10 billion US dollars, to ramp up work on prevention, diagnostics, and treatment.
The Federal Communications Commission, or FCC, said on Friday that it may revoke the ability of 4 Chinese government-controlled telecommunications companies to operate in the United States, citing national security risks. Earlier this month, the U.S. Justice Department and other federal agencies called on the FCC to revoke China Telecom's ability to operate in the United States. This week, the FCC issued show cause orders to China Telecom Americas, China Unicom Americas, Pacific Networks, and ComNet. The orders prompt the companies to explain why the FCC should not start the process of revoking their domestic and international section authorizations, enabling them to operate in the United States. We'll be sure to keep you updated with this outcome.
Thank you for watching. This has been FISM News.